Welcome to the study group. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Chuck.
Thank you, Derek.
All right. So we're going to continue our study on the watchwords of Jesus. And today we're talking about lay up your treasures in heaven.
Yes. Lay up your treasures in heaven. What a great concept. Mm-hmm. And we're going to explore what Jesus meant by that and how that applies, how we can take that guidance into our daily life as we create and go forward in all of our ventures and the things we're about, to make sure that we're not just looking after our material needs, but we're also looking after the needs of our soul, right, and our potential for spiritual growth, which is, I think, what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. So sometimes this gets confused. Sometimes people want this idea of you can't take it with you,
right? Like, comically here. Yeah. It's like this cartoon from Far Side.
Yeah, right. Which is a classic.
Yeah. It's George. He's taking it with him, right? So right. Just the misunderstanding of the material treasures. Yeah. What you might bring with you versus the soul treasure. Exactly.
So sometimes we can learn by looking at the opposite of the truth. Right. It's not that we can literally drag pianos and televisions up into heaven. But if that's all you focus on in your life are your material goods and your material career and your material stuff, then it's almost as if this is what you're trying to do. Right. To think that will, give you eternal life, which obviously it doesn't. So,
and that in juxtaposition to the teachings of Jesus, where he talks about lay up your treasures in heaven, which we have a nice slide for right here with a drawing from Rembrandt.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
He says, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasures are, there will your hearts be also.
Yes, exactly.
So we talk about the heart connection to the soul, and how we've been talking this whole time about, the kingdom of God is within, in the hearts of men and women, obviously, but as this heart being kind of the portal to the soul.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's really interesting when Jesus refers to the human heart, just trying to get a sense of what he means by that, because it's a very tender place within us, I think, where our highest hopes reside, in our most, our feelings of love for others and for God. All this kind of originates in the heart. Even though it's not a technical term, it's hard to locate exactly where the heart is or what it is. Right. But we all kind of know what it is because we have feelings there. If you've ever been in love, you feel love in your heart. So as we, again, go through all the efforts of our lives to make sure that some of that effort is spent toward creating a heart sense of possibility for the future. Right. And even extending into the next life, into eternal life. So that's the other part of what he's talking about here. Right. Not just your spiritual growth in this world, but also your potential for surviving into the next world, evolving an eternal version of yourself.
Right. An investment that you're making.
An investment. Yes. Right.
Okay, good. And then we're looking at a soul investment.
A soul investment.
As one of my friends talks about, depositing Urantia coins, Urantia credits in the soul bank.
Yeah, there you go. Something like that.
Well, cool. Okay, well, maybe we can get going on some of these quotes.
Sure.
So we don't take up everyone's time, but I just want to read a little one over here called where Jesus is. This is at the ordination, I believe.
Right. This is where this first comes up. This is where he first expresses this idea to the apostles.
Right. So he's speaking to the apostles and he says, as my chosen apostles, now set apart for the service of the kingdom, lay not up for yourselves treasures on earth, but by your unselfish service, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. For where your treasures are, there will your hearts be also. Kind of like what we just read. Mm-hmm. But also connecting it with service a little bit here too.
Yeah. Unselfish service.
Right.
So this idea that we can reach beyond ourselves, that there's a greater reality, that there's, the whole concept of service is very close to the concept of love. The Urantia book defines love as the desire to do good for others. So that manifests as service, and particularly unselfish service.
Right.
And so that, I don't know, it's like you think you remember those times and you feel good about them. These are kind of the high points of even our lives here, is when we succeed in doing something really helpful, something that has value for others, that uplifts the lives of others even in some significant way. And there's tremendous satisfaction in that, much greater than just like getting something for yourself.
Right. And much greater than collecting these material things that almost you end up isolating yourself with, instead of the sharing that is reflective of the friendly universe.
Right.
We're all kind of sharing like a family.
Right. Well, so what's good for all is good for me.
Right.
There's that kind of relationship to the whole, that we're not just isolated in that sense.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. And that kind of leads us to this next one of where Jesus is giving a parable, right? Of a rich man who kind of is confused as to what he needs to invest in. And he builds up, he has so many goods from being a farmer or whatever, right? Having
so
crops.
Successful.
Yeah, he's so successful that he needs bigger barns, essentially. Right. And then when he gets bigger barns and fills them, he kind of like talks to his soul saying, all right, soul, see how much good stuff we have.
Right. We're all set.
Yeah, we're all set. And so this is what Jesus then continues to say.
And that night he was attacked.
Right, well, yeah, if you want to continue with the parable, it's that night he ended up losing his life.
Right. His
soul was required.
Exactly. And they took all his stuff. The brigands took all his stuff.
He learned quickly what was important, what wasn't.
Right.
So what Jesus was saying to his apostles here, he was saying, this rich man was foolish in providing for the material requirements of his mind and body. He had failed to lay up treasures in heaven for the satisfaction of the spirit and for the salvation of the soul. This man laid up treasures for himself on earth, but he was not rich toward God. That's cool. That rich toward God.
Yeah,
what do you make of that?
Yeah, that really caught my attention. I hadn't seen that phrase anywhere else in the book. I mean, that's talking about our relation to God in quite that way. So I thought that was very interesting. The idea that we can offer riches to God. And then you have to think about, well, what sort of riches would God appreciate? Right? I mean, we know that God has given us tremendous riches. And to be filled with a spirit of gratitude about that is a huge part of...
That's part of using what God has invested in you.
Right. So what can we give God in return?
Right.
Is kind of the question that this brings up, which is a fascinating question.
Yeah.
And top of the list probably is love.
Yeah. And
attention.
Yeah, attention, and just, I'd say, vulnerability, honesty, the inner life, the sharing of the inner life.
Exactly.
Our free will, creativity to choose to be like him, or to give this life to share with the Creator. Yeah. Giving the gift back with gratitude.
Having that relationship.
Reciprocity.
Yeah, right. So think of God as an ideal father, as an ideal parent, and how our parents love us so much, an ideal parent. They're like our biggest fans. So we want to return that by being at our best, to lift ourselves up from the inside so that we can give our best back. Right. And grow in our capacities to serve and everything else.
Well, that's why it's so important to know that this universe is friendly.
Exactly.
So that we can kind of act accordingly.
Right. You're right. It's forgiving, friendly and forgiving, but open to tremendous effort on our part to give and to serve.
Yeah. And growing our soul.
But not in a kind of a taskmaster way.
Right.
It's like a voluntary thing.
It always has to be voluntary.
We volunteer our service. We volunteer our love in response to the recognition of the love that we received, which is a wonderful kind of dynamic. And
that ensures no coercion whatsoever. Ultimate sovereignty of free will.
Exactly. And then you can have like a real friendship with God. It's like you can walk side by side. And yeah.
Okay, well, let me move on to another quote. And this is more a midway or commentary about Jesus and how he taught and things like that, right? So they say, Jesus did not teach nor countenance improvidence, idleness, or indifference to providing physical necessities. But he did teach that the material and temporal must be subordinated to the welfare of the soul and the progress of the spiritual nature in the kingdom of heaven. So this is, again, the kingdom comes first.
Yes.
Seek first the kingdom,
Right.
and let that augment the rest.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. This is a commentary on this parable that we just were talking about, making it clear that when Jesus talks about paying attention to the salvation of your soul and laying up treasures in heaven, he's not disregarding the practical needs of a material life, which
Right.
we all have to contend with. So he's not countenancing, he's not saying, oh, it's okay to just be idle and sit around and not take care of your physical necessities because you're always enraptured in spirit or something.
Right.
There's this balance and a recognition of our material needs. And it was the same in his life. He was very strategic about developing his skills.
How did they describe it? A majestic balance or a majestic personality, well balanced?
Yeah,
something like
as
that?
a goal of our earthly
Mhm.
development of character.
Which reminds me of
Majestic.
Jesus's character.
Yeah, majestic character.
And well balanced.
Right. And it was based on self-mastery in the world,
Yeah.
in his ability to be, learn how to do all the different things he did, like how to build boats, how to, repair
Tents.
tent making, boat building, carpentry,
Yeah.
even he led that caravan. He was a
Yeah,
caravan
yeah,
leader.
yeah.
He
And medical work too. I mean,
he did metal work, right? He even worked in mines for a while.
yeah.
He
And
did-
medical work, I meant.
Oh,
too.
medical.
Healing.
Oh,
you
yes.
know?
Yes, that too.
But he did work in mines too.
And I think he did some metal work too. He blacksmithing for a while.
Yeah,
Somebody in his
cool.
family was a blacksmith.
Wow.
Anyway, so he learned all these skills. So he was always able to provide for himself.
Well, it reminded me of Gained when they were kind of taken off. He was leading kind of a caravan sort of thing with Gained.
Yeah.
And Gained looked at him when he grabbed the reins and finished packing the animals and everything. He's
Right.
like,
Tying down
he's
everything.
like, wow, master, is there anything you can't do?
Can't do. Right.
But yet he stayed humble.
He did. Yeah. Yeah.
Even in that.
But all of that speaks to the mastery of our practical requirements.
Mm-hmm. And you only get one shot on this planet, so you might as well learn as much as you can, experience
Yeah.
as much as you can.
Right.
too.
Yeah. And the thing about all these jobs or tasks or types of employment that we get into because we have to provide for ourselves,
Mhm.
they can all serve as opportunities to grow in our understanding of other people and improving the quality of what we bring to everything we do. So,
Yeah. And I think paying attention to the soul is what does that, is we
Yeah.
kind of see the evolution of the soul in other people.
And
Yeah.
that's part of this idea of laying up treasures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Creating a version of yourself that's worthy of survival in eternity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it kind of leads us to this next slide here,
Okay.
if you want to read it.
Yeah, I'll go for it. Okay. So this is from Jesus' Discourse on the Soul, where he's just basically defining or describing what the soul is. And he says, the soul is the self-reflective, truth-discerning, and spirit-perceiving part of man, which forever elevates the human being above the level of the animal world. Moral choice and spiritual attainment, the ability to know God, and the urge to be like him are the characteristics of the soul. So when we experience these feelings and desires in ourselves, particularly the urge to know God and be like him, that's a indicator of the existence of our own soul.
Yeah, these moral choices, moral decisions.
Yeah.
It's even interesting that that's kind of through our first moral choice is when
The adjuster comes, the Spirit of God comes to live within us. Right. So the Spirit of God that comes to live within us when we do that at a young age is the kind of our partner in this creative venture. I mean, we have however many years we have on this world is our opportunity to grow and develop a version of ourselves that's not physical.
Right.
That's our only hope for getting off the planet.
And when you say partner, I feel like literally
Yeah.
a partner in co-creative venture.
It's actually becoming part of us.
Yeah, like we've
You're right.
birthed a soul too, though, with the indwelling spirit.
Right.
So it's kind of like this offspring of us too,
Right.
and a teacher, because
Yeah.
we can interact with our soul.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's
We kind of are our soul,
yeah,
but we also are kind of aware of it in this way that he's talking about.
right.
So it's a very interesting kind of relationship, you might say,
Yeah.
between our personality and our soul.
Yeah.
Because our personality is who we are every day, but our soul is what's growing every day.
Right.
It's our growing identity, our growing sense of ourselves. So it's so important that be spiritual, so that it has value that's lasting.
Right. Right.
Material things like our bodies, like our stuff, will eventually return to dust. It's inevitable.
So identity is really important.
So it's important to have a sense of ourselves, or a sense of identity that's not physical. So these next couple slides, maybe go to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is going to explain this a little bit more, and I think this is just fascinating how the Urantia book talks about the soul and what it is, its importance. They say the human personality is identified with mind and spirit, held together in functional relationship by life in a material body. So that's our current state of affairs, summarized quite elegantly. This functioning relationship of such mind and spirit does not result in some combination of the qualities or attributes of mind and spirit, but rather in an entirely new, original, and unique universe value of potentially eternal endurance, the soul. So there's a lot in that quote. But this idea that, to first of all understand that we have personality, which gives us the power of will and decision making and all of that. And it begins with our understanding that, our recognition that, we have a mind. And then within our mind, there's this eternal spirit, this gift from God, an actual fragment of God, Spirit of God, that lives within our mind. And these two are working together, but they're held in this functional relationship temporarily during this life, by our life in a material body. So for this period that we're in our bodies, we can come to realize that there's this functional relationship going on within us.
Yeah.
And that we can observe, our personality can observe that. But what evolves is our sense of identity. What do we identify with? And what they're saying is that this dynamic interaction between mind and spirit that we can manage and control and direct by virtue of our power of will, that's an aspect of our personality, has a creative potential that goes beyond any of the source components.
That's what I like to say. It's not it's not the result of some combination.
Yes.
But it's something unique and new.
Right.
And that's kind of why I get the picture of it's like the offspring almost also. It's like a dynamic offspring, because when two partners have a child, it's not like they just blob on the mom's things. Like physically, there's this kind of weird, unique new thing that
unpredictable in
Yeah.
many aspects.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. The child of two parents is not just half one and half the other.
Right.
They're like an entirely new manifestation. So this emphasis on originality and uniqueness is tied to our personality, because our this gift that we've been given of personality is unique for each of us.
Right, mortal personality.
So when that becomes joined with spirit, then we can create this unique soul.
Well, that kind of rolls right into this.
So let's go for this next one. So mortal personality, here again, starting out with the recognition of the importance of personality. Mortal personality through its own choosing. So our power to choose is crucial in this whole process. possesses the power of transferring its seat of identity from the passing material intellect system, brain, body, all that, to the higher Urantia soul system, which, in association with the thought adjuster, is created as a new vehicle for personality manifestation.
Wow.
So we have some Urantia book terminology here that I don't know if everyone's familiar with, but the Urantia is a term that's introduced in the Urantia book to refer to this type of reality that's born from combining spirit with material.
Right.
So in a sense, that's what we're doing as we grow our soul.
Blending.
We're doing a blending of, we're growing out of material soil, but we're reaching for spirit. And as we do that, we create, again, this version of ourselves or a sense of identity for ourselves that it transcends the physical.
And we need mind to do that.
And that's all goes on in our minds.
Yeah.
The mind is the arena where all this goes on.
Yeah. I think they say that the mind is the loom on which the thought adjuster spins a thread.
Exactly. Right. So this concept of, or this idea of transferring our seat of identity is so kind of exciting and, I don't know, provocative and fascinating to even just to think about that we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
If you think so many people, they identify with their body. They think they're their body, right?
Right.
So as they age and their body starts to wear out and they have all kinds of problems physically, then they figure, okay, I'm done. I'm toast. It's all over,
Right.
Without realizing that isn't really who they are. It doesn't have to be who they are. But what this quote is pointing to is our potential to consciously transfer our sense of identity from our body to what they refer to as this higher system that's derived from spirit.
Well, this next quote kind of talks about how, little practical ways or the practicality of it.
Right. Let's go.
If I could read it.
Sure, yeah. And this is Jesus.
Right, Jesus. Mm-hmm. Believers must increasingly learn how to step aside from the rush of life, escape the harassments of material existence, while they refresh the soul, inspire the mind, and renew the spirit by worshipful communion. So there's kind of the practical lesson where he's just kind of being very blunt here. He's saying, look, don't let the anxieties and the rush of life get to you. You have to maintain a discipline, a practice of where you can step aside and get into worshipful communion.
Right. And just focus on that.
Yeah.
Give that real time. That you just stop doing everything else. And okay, I'm just going to be with God for a little while, even if it's a few minutes every day, to refresh the soul, inspire the mind, and renew the spirit by worshipful communion. And anyone who's ever done this can speak to the reality of this. Yeah. I mean, it's remarkable if you really can do that. If you just said, okay, God, I'm just going to give you my attention. I'm going to be with you. And, we'll talk about whatever needs to be talked about. But mainly, I just want to bask in your presence and be grateful for everything that, you've given. And there's just something that happens that is transformative, that is, what do they say here? Renewing and inspiring and refreshing.
Right.
You come out of that experience and it's like you go back into the day and it's like you're a new person.
And it can start small. I was interviewing Angie and she was talking about how she started just setting 5 minutes on the timer. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And so, that grows. It evolves if you start your practice with a good intention. Right.
And the more you do it, the more you want to do it, because you begin to realize that you're actually contacting a reality.
Right. And then that goes into this next one where it goes, when you once begin to find God in your soul, presently you will begin to discover him in other men's souls, and eventually in all the creatures and creations of a mighty universe. So it's something that's growing, like a relationship that you get to you begin to recognize not only in your own soul, but in other people's souls.
Exactly.
And that they have a soul and that there's this dynamic relation with the eternal with them too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We begin to see God in others in the same way that we find God in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the real potential for unity of community
Mm-hmm.
and endeavors of all kinds. And it's the one thing that's the same about us. Up in that earlier quote, they mentioned the thought adjuster, which is a Urantia book term for the Spirit of God. And they say that this when first going out into reality, these divine fragments of deity presence are the same. So we each there's something that's the same in all of us, which is this divine presence. But it's combined with our uniqueness, which is our personality. So by combining this sameness with our uniqueness, then in our relationship with others, we can begin to sense that divinity presence in others, which draws us closer together because we want to explore that.
And reinforces our assurance of the divine presence as well.
Exactly.
Shared experience.
Yeah.
It's really important. And that kind of just goes to this next quote here. I'll just kind of read it too. When my children once become self-conscious of the assurance of the divine presence, such a faith will expand the mind, ennoble the soul, reinforce the personality, augment the happiness, deepen the spirit perception, and enhance the power to love and be loved. Mm-hmm. That's a huge capacity upgrade.
Yeah, what a great list of features.
Yeah.
When you talk about, you're going to get a new software upgrade and you're looking at the feature list, right? What are the features of this upgrade? It's like,
I'll take that. That sounds good.
It's going to ennoble my soul and reinforce my personality. Make me happier.
Well, the funny thing with all this is kind of, it sounds so great, and yet in our society, at least in the Western society, it sounds counterintuitive. Like, wait, eternal salvation, soul development, reassurance of happiness, and deepen my spiritual perception. Like, I don't have to buy anything. I don't have to do this crazy hard work that makes me bleed or sacrifice my firstborn son or something like that. It's really just a decision and then an openness to blend. It's vulnerable.
It's a reception of a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And the capacity to receive this gift is based on our willingness to love in return and to have a gratitude for these things.
And the gift grows.
You're right. Our capacity grows. Yeah.
It's not like you get the gift and that's it.
Yeah. Right.
Right. It actually enhances and evolves with you.
Right. So these are all dynamic. If you look at the phrasing on all of these, they're all dynamic. They're all speaking about a dynamic process, like ennobling, augmenting, deepening, enhancing, reinforcing. Mm-hmm. These are all dynamic processes that have a trajectory through time that, produce increasing outcomes of all these qualities of experience. And it's all based on this becoming self-conscious of the assurance of the divine presence.
Yeah.
My children. I love when Jesus talks about my children, because he's talking to adults here. He's not talking to kids.
Right.
But that's how he sees us. We literally are his children.
Yeah.
He has a very fatherly and brotherly attitude or regard for us, which is so wonderfully rich because, we see the Father in him, but he's also our brother in the flesh. He was. So he understands what it means to be human.
Yeah. And what it means to search for these revealed truths.
Right, because he went through the same experience himself.
Yeah,
so he can talk about it from the authority of his own experience as a human being. Yeah. So shall we go on?
Yeah.
Okay, so we got a couple more here. Revealed truth, personally discovered truth, and again, this is Jesus speaking, is the supreme delight of the human soul. It is the joint creation of the material mind and the indwelling spirit. The eternal salvation of this truth-discerning and beauty-loving soul is assured by that hunger and thirst for goodness, which leads this mortal to develop a singleness of purpose to do the Father's will, to find God, and to become like him. So again, it's like we begin to discover these things, and it's such a tease. It's such a such a lure. It's such a desirable, it's like the pearl of great price. You begin to sense the value of what this stuff is, what we're talking about here. And they describe it in terms of being the supreme delight.
Yeah, it is.
The truth. If anybody's experienced this, you know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
When you discover truth for yourself, you're not just adopting a belief that somebody told you, or you're not just saying, okay, well, maybe whatever. But when you actually discover truth in your own experience, in your own life, and you can touch the reality of it, it's such a delight.
And share it.
And then share it. Yeah, because it's that's so real then. You're talking about a reality. You're not just talking about a theory or a belief.
Yeah.
So that's what's exciting about that sentence for me.
Absolutely.
Let's see. And then going on to everything non-spiritual in human experience, accepting personality, is a means to an end. So you think about all the stuff in our lives and everything that
we're not taking with us.
That we're not taking with us, we're not taking our grand piano or our television. But anyway, everything non-spiritual in human experience, accepting personality, is a means to an end. It's not saying it doesn't have importance, but it's a means to an end. Every true relationship of mortal man, men and women, with other persons, human or divine, including God, is an end in itself. And such fellowship with the personality of deity is the eternal goal of universe ascension.
Well, there it is right there.
Yeah. So that's one of these treasures in heaven that we can lay up, are our relationships with our friends, our coworkers, our partners, and whatever. All of these relationships have value. They are a value.
Relationships are value.
Exactly. Yeah, they're not a means to an end. They're an end in themselves. And we can experience that with each other, and then obviously with God. That's, caps that all off. It's even more true in ways that we can't even comprehend. And then they say that true religion is the act of an individual soul in its self-conscious relations with the Creator. So this is an interesting distinction here when they say true religion. So in the Urantia book, when they talk about religion, there's, the term has different meanings. Many people think immediately of institutional religion.
Right.
And that's not what they're talking about here. They're talking about personal religion, which some people might prefer to refer to as spirituality.
Right.
There's kind of a thing going on in the culture right now, spiritual but not religious. There's kind of a turning away from institutional religion because of it seems like too old fashioned, or, it doesn't really serve.
Well, it doesn't seem like it leaves room for free will, creativity.
Yeah. I mean, it can in its best manifestations. But this here, when they talk about true religion, they're talking about something you do within yourself. It's your relationship to God.
Sharing the inner life with God.
Sharing the inner life with God. So, and it's interesting how they put it in terms of a self-conscious relation with the Creator. So you're conscious of yourself in the relationship with God.
Yes.
And that's what enables you to make that personal reach, and have it be received and recognized personally by God.
Yeah, because you are doing it.
You are doing it.
You're not God. You're not some other personality. You are making these choices to do this.
Yes, exactly. You as a self-conscious individual.
Excellent. And that's growing our soul.
And that's how our soul grows, is by growing that relationship, enjoying it, savoring it,
paying attention,
turning to it every day, and having it be a growing reality in our lives.
Well, I like that idea, just for my own personal practices, my heart being my umbilical cord to my soul, so I can go into my heart and connect with my soul and my spirit. Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, it's all in the heart, and the heart leads to the soul. Yeah.
Well, cool.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Chuck.
Sure.
Great work, man.
Thanks, Derek.
Always.
Fun topic.
Yeah. And thanks to you guys. Stick around for other study groups.
More to come.